On his Club Random podcast, controversial comedian and political commentator Bill Maher sat down for a conversation with comparably controversial neuroscientist and philosopher Sam Harris, and the two, among other things, bonded over their shared disdain for MAGA and their fears for the future regarding MAGA. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, I want to play a couple of clips from a very recent episode of Club Random, which is Bill Maher's personal podcast when he's not doing Real Time with Bill Maher. He tends to get cross-faded, so drunk and high, and has conversations, some of them entertaining, some of them cringe. But again, one of the things that I appreciate about Bill Maher, it's one of the few things, is that whatever disdain he has for the far left or however much he gets caught up on, niche culture war issues, and Sam Harris also struggles with this, both of them recognize that the MAGA movement is just more existentially dangerous to the political and civic fabric of this country than anything they see on Twitter from leftist advocates. And I appreciate that sort of perspective because they have stayed true to that. So in the spirit of that, I want to play a couple of clips in which they, muse over the threat MAGA poses to elections and to the political fabric. And then I'm going to play another clip in which Sam Harris talks about an observation he observed from a recent debate with his friend, but de facto MAGA Republican Ben Shapiro. But here's the first clip.
I'll just make it explicit. I do think that one of the silver linings of him having won this election and having won it decisively is that it has discharged all of that pent-up rage and conspiracy thinking. I mean, in Trumpistan,
is it?
Well, they've gotten everything.
Yeah.
Right. So now they've got 4 years.
No, they believe in elections again.
Yeah. So our election system works, right? Apparently, and the elites couldn't keep the man down.
But again,
and there's no conspiracy. The Jews didn't do the thing that we're worried about.
But again, and I don't think you're going to disagree with this. We didn't cure the cancer. We just pushed it further into tissue.
Well, but I think it's different. But the counterfactual is scary. I mean, so a Harris administration with all of these right-wing QAnon-addled nutcases thinking that the fix was in and elections don't mean anything, and all of that's bad from my point of view. So the fact that half of the electorate is that crazy is, I do think they've been mollified, and then now they get to see what it's like to govern with all of the tech bros they love, and we'll see what happens.
Well, I don't know what will happen with that. I do know what will happen with the next election, which is why, as much as we're living in a wonderful time now, where America's great again, whatever the next election is, if the Democrat wins it, they're just going to be ever more suspicious, and it's just going to be we're putting off this day where something has to give with the people who don't believe in elections unless we win them.
No, but
that's intolerable.
Why would you say that if this time we, the mustache twirling plutocrats, couldn't fix the election?
You're thinking too.
Elections works.
You're thinking so logically. That's Sam. He
won everything. He ran the table.
Yes, because there was no cheating. But if he had lost, there would have been cheating. No, you have it backwards.
Absolutely, but we've proven that you could have a fair election in the year 2024.
You're living in the world where you're encountering people like you.
Right.
And that's not the world we live in.
So they're mocking MAGA, right? I mean, Sam's playing the devil's advocate tongue-in-cheek because he knows, as Bill Maher points out, that the 2024 election proves nothing as far as MAGA is concerned in terms of the Democrats' capacity to steal elections. Remember, they, without evidence, believe that we stole the 2020 election at the presidential level. Now, the various down ballot elections that Republicans won, like Republican gubernatorial races or Republican senatorial and congressional races, even though they were on the same ballot as part of the same election, well, those were valid. I mean, Democrats didn't steal those elections. There was no rigging or cheating in that election because Republicans won those elections. So that's good. That counts. But where Republicans won, particularly the presidency in 2020, well, that was obviously cheating. Again, even though it was the same ballot. Again, no consistency whatsoever, deeply, profoundly, unambiguously stupid. Not a single redeeming feature to the notion that the 2020 election was stolen by Democrats. It is 100%. It is one of those few beliefs in the world that is, from start to finish, without nuance, incredibly dumb and should be relentlessly mocked. It's also, unfortunately, deeply widespread in the Republican Party. There are tens of millions of people who believe it. And consequently, as Bill and Sam are talking about, it's mutated into a belief that if Republicans win, it's free and fair. If Democrats win, it's because Democrats cheated. And note what Sam points out, the irony there, which is MAGA believes that Democrats who were not in power were able to rig and steal the 2020 election, the presidency, but again, not Republicans won gubernatorial races, Senate seats, congressional seats, so they weren't powerful enough to steal that. That probably would have come in handy. But okay. But then in 2024, when Democrats were in power, when we controlled the White House, controlled the House of Representatives, when we had more power by far than we did in 2020, we somehow weren't able to rig the election. Now, they say too big to rig, and I'm not sure what that means. What does that mean, and what does that mean specifically in practice? Because you also said that the 2020 election was a blowout for Trump, and we somehow rigged that. So apparently it's not a too big to rig thing. Very strange stuff. But I'm with Bill on this, and I suspect that, if you ask Sam to, set his jokes aside, he would also agree that we are now seeing a trend, and it doesn't look likely to change, that anytime a Democrat wins an election, Republicans believe that the election was rigged, particularly with crucial offices like the presidency or like purple or swing state Senate seats, gubernatorial seats, things like that. But obviously the presidency most specifically. And Bill Maher's right. Something's going to have to give. And I don't know what that looks like or who's going to give first, but we have further escalated. We are seeing an escalation in this this sort of anti-election rhetoric coming from the Republican Party, because again, even though we are deeply upset with the outcome of this particular election, the Democrats conceded publicly and privately. There has been so far a peaceful transfer of power, no insurrection, no plot to steal the election, no legal or extra-legal challenges to the election results. But unfortunately, in order to have a functioning election system, you need both sides, both parties, if there are two major parties, to buy in, not just one. One party can't carry the entire system on its back alone. Something will eventually give. Here's another clip, though, in which Sam Harris makes it even more personal in a sense, because he reminisces on a pre-election debate he had just a couple of months ago with Ben Shapiro on the Free Press, hosted by Barry Weiss.
No, I mean, I felt it. This may sound like a invidious thing to say about Ben, but did you see my debate with Ben Shapiro on for Barry on Honestly?
I did not.
Okay, so we this is pre-election.
So
maybe
I did.
Maybe like 10
I
days
read
before
it.
the election.
Was there a transcript?
They might have
I read
a transcript.
it.
Yeah.
Yes, I read it.
So anyway, we did a debate, but I realized, and I'm sure Ben would disagree with this, but I think he would be wrong, that there was a freedom I had in having this debate with him, and I like Ben, and it was a totally open-hearted debate. There was nothing wrong there, but I realized I was free. Like whenever he made a good point against Kamala Harris, I was free to agree with it.
Right.
It's like I got no. I mean, I know. I'm beholden to no one, not even my audience, on some level.
Me neither.
And it's just like,
priceless.
He knows his audience is Trumpistan. He knows he can't actually say he can't wake up tomorrow morning and realize, okay, all this stuff has gone too far. Trump is a fucking Nazi, and I don't agree. I want no part of this. His business is predicated. Tomorrow's business is predicated on him not doing that. He can't have that epiphany, and I can. It's an amazing freedom.
So it's interesting because I don't know if you guys I've mentioned it in previous conversations and previous videos, but I actually went through a phase in my life after Donald Trump won the first election where I became a bit of an enlightened centrist. I only ever voted Democrat. I despised Trump, but I became really interested in Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire, the pre-Daily Wire, because I don't know if the Daily Wire had been created yet, but a lot of its constituent creators and trigonometry and Jordan Peterson and all of that. I bought into a lot of the, well, we got to criticize the left from the left. I'm just a disaffected liberal. It didn't change my voting patterns, and I did eventually snap out of even the cesspool of enlightened centrism when a friend of mine pointed out, he said, you care more about what AOC says on Twitter than you do what the sitting president, then Donald Trump, is doing both on Twitter and off Twitter. And he said there's just no rational basis to be more concerned with a freshman Democratic congressperson who has to share power with 434 members of a single chamber and then 100 members of the different chambers, so power is divided among the legislature, compared to the most powerful person on earth. And he was right. I'm so glad, because it was just a huge epiphany. And that was me stepping over $1 for the sake of a nickel. Well, it's interesting to see, because I used to like Ben Shapiro, but it's interesting because, of course, I've really loathed him for years now, and with each passing year, my contempt is getting so much greater, because this is a guy who claims to be principled, and yet, at the end of the day, what Sam Harris is talking about is audience capture. Because Ben Shapiro's audience is either Trump supporting or Trump adjacent, Shapiro just sacrifices his principles and his previous statements on the altar of political expediency, and it was on full display during his debate with Sam Harris. It was on full display during his conversation with friend of the show, liberal streamer Destiny, in which he openly admitted, yeah, I grade Trump on a curve. That is such an irrational and stupid statement to make from someone who claims to be a principled conservative who has consistent standards. What he's saying is, no. If it's convenient for me and my particular politics, I'll just grade my side or my side's closest proxies on a curve because screw you. And so it's just interesting to hear, Sam Harris's epiphanies on, because I imagine that was quite frustrating in the moment, especially if he considers Ben Shapiro a friend. So I definitely encourage you to watch this full thing. Sam Harris and Bill Maher are problematic for me because they say shit that gets on my nerves all the time. But again, one of the things that I really like is that whatever we disagree on when it comes to, trans issues and how important it is and DEI and all this stuff, I mean, they're really caught up in niche culture war issues and railing against it and thinking that, I think that sometimes they confuse with what you see on Twitter with as a reflection of the Democratic Party as a whole. Maher is a bit better on that because he usually goes out of his way to say, okay, what you see on Twitter is not reflective of the Democratic Party. But what I do appreciate is whatever disagreements we have on culture war issues, we agree and we are united that MAGA is simply objectively the greater threat. And I am pleased that Bill Maher refuses to lose sight of it. I think Sam Harris did for a while, and he has for the past few years been on a bit of a redemption tour in the sense of like he has made most of his criticisms about Trump and the MAGA movement. And hopefully that will continue to be the case because whether you like them or not, these two are wildly influential. And we need as many allies as we possibly can to resist MAGA Republicans. So anyway, that's my opinion. In the meantime, let me know your opinion in the comments.